Session is being recorded. Greetings, everybody. Welcome to the July 2025 session of Transforming Assessment. Today we've got Ayse Bilgin from Macquarie University, a former employer of mine as well. Today's session is about project-based assessment. Ayse, would you like to begin, introduce yourself, etc., and we can get underway?
Sure, I can do that. I'd like to firstly acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that we all live in. I'm currently in the Darug land in Sydney. I've been living here and my children are grown up here. I'm so thankful for the traditional owners. I'd like to acknowledge the past, present, and thank you for giving the land to us to use, share, and learn from it with you. I'm Ayse Bilgin from Macquarie University. As Matthew said, we used to work in the same place. I'm still working in the same place. I am an academic in the discipline of statistics. So my talk is structured around project assessment in the discipline of statistics, but it can be in any discipline really. So you just have to think about how I can change it to apply to my discipline. What can I do to make it possible? It is also can be used in my discipline. I'm going to click on the chat as well. So I'm going to keep an eye on the chat during the presentation. If you have any questions, you can just type there, and if I will answer straight away if it's a quick answer. Especially if you can't understand something, please do ask as we go. But I will make sure I leave time at the end so that I can answer your questions. Thank you for all joining us. It's really lovely to see that many people here. Okay, so a couple of months ago, I sent an abstract to Matthew to say I'd like to present because he was calling for expression of interest. I have been doing project work more than 20 years with my students in different levels of learning, first year, last year, master's units, and I have tweaked and adopted and changed it slightly so that I can ensure no free loadings. The students who do not know work don't get any marks, and also I try to do it as much as possible that imitates the workplace practice. Depending on the level of learning, the content of the project assessment is different, and also it's not just one assessment. It's usually tailored around project plan and then presentation, individual presentation, group work, and individual part of it, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to give you the outline of it, not necessarily all the details of the project assessment, but I believe I included a couple of publications that I have related to project assessment over time. If you are interested, you can also get in touch with me if you want, but you can have a look at my publications in that area as well. So I can't start any presentation without saying statistics is your ticket to anywhere. I know more than likely not all of you are doing statistics, but then again, you might be using it in your teaching, you might be using it in your research, and you're absolutely using it in your daily life, whether you know it or not. We are exposed to so many statistical results nowadays. So I argue that learning statistics is really good for you. And it is good for you because you will be in a position to identify lies, damn lies, and statistics, because many people in the past and nowadays are using statistics to lie with the statistics. Ages ago, when I started my second master's at the University of Newcastle here in Australia, my supervisor had that book by half, but this is a newer version, 1993 is the newer version. It was the original version. So I read it with amazement, and nowadays, whatever he said in that book, it still applies. So we have to be careful about statistics. And I do emphasize to my students when I'm teaching, it's really important to be as open as possible, and make sure you document what you've done so that it can be replicated by others, because you might also heard about the replication crisis with the research and things like that. So with statistics, it's really important to provide enough details so it can be replicated by others. It can be proven they are not lies, but they are truth. And generative AI, oh my God, since 2022 November, we woke up one morning and suddenly everyone was talking about ChatGPT. Yes, how to lie with AI is true too, and it's so true, because everyone was talking about ChatGPT and university was having meetings to educate the academics, and we first started thinking about how can we catch students that are using general artificial intelligence. Specifically at that time, it was ChatGPT. All we knew was ChatGPT. We were so scared because we didn't know what to do. We survived the pandemic. We moved in a week. We moved fully online learning and teaching, fully online assessment. We weren't scared of the pandemic and how we can do it in fully online, because we had some exposures to that, and there was nothing else we could do, and we did move in. But with ChatGPT, it was different. It was different. It was scary because it was big unknown. I read through some of the history of learning and teaching, because currently I'm writing a book chapter on generative AI in statistics education. And to me, it resembles the first reaction to ChatGPT and general artificial intelligence, regardless of the discipline you are in, resembles the first reaction to use of calculators in 1970s or so by mathematics teachers specifically, and then use of computers in statistics learning. In some places in the world, people are still learning statistics just paper and pen because they don't have resources. In some places in the world, people are still doing calculations without calculators. But can we imagine a world now without calculators, without computers? It is really hard to imagine. So therefore, what I'm going to suggest that is, when we think about generative AI and education, we shouldn't see it as a problem. We shouldn't see it something that we have to be policing, but we have to see it as an opportunity to enhance learning and teaching, to enhance the assessment as well. So if we just change how we look at it, we can see the opportunities. Just one example of looking at differently. When you look at this, what do you see? A young girl or an old woman? Please type in the chat. Wonderful. So many people see the young girl for sure. Maybe at first sight, if you've seen this before, you can see both of them at the same time. I understand that. I usually use this in my teaching as well, because when students look at a problem from one angle, they concentrate on just solving that part. But when you look at it from a different angle, the problem could be different. So instead of looking at from this angle or that angle, and for generative AI, instead of looking at it as a problem, if we look at it as an opportunity, a challenge, a learning that we have to do so that we can educate our students and we can make sure we can assess how they are using generative AI for their learning, that would be wonderful. In statistics, the problems here, most of them relate to statistics, but then again, towards the end, it also about everything else. In statistics, with the data science and with the artificial intelligence, what we notice over the years is that the many people say they wish they learned statistics, but when they were given the opportunity to learn statistics, usually in their first year of university studies, they just couldn't see how it related to what they were studying, regardless of whatever they are studying. You might already know the BCom students, business students, and sometimes doctors, nurses. They do study statistics. I should say that the most heard words by academics who are teaching first year statistics, more than 1,000 students per semester in Australia, which I was one of them. Students keep telling us that I hate statistics. No one loves statistics somehow. But regardless, they hate it or not, they need it. They need to understand it so that they can use it properly in their work later on when they graduate. Over the years, what we also saw, one of the problems or opportunities, I should say, universities and the governments around the world kept telling the academics, we don't want our students just to learn the facts. We don't want them just to have the knowledge in the discipline they are studying, but we want them to be creative. We want them to be entrepreneurs. We want them to be critical thinking and problem solvers, global citizens, lifelong learning, all these soft skills. And we've been told all the time, embedded in your teaching, embedded in your teaching. In some places, this was done really well. In others, it was a band-aid solution, like some expert in some communication skills came in and gave one hour lecture, 2 hour lecture, and that was it. Unfortunately, when it's done that way, it's a band-aid solution, it doesn't work. When you embed all these soft skills as part of the learning and teaching, as part of the assessment, that sticks. And that was my aim when I was designing the project work for my students. At some time at my university, we also had graduate capabilities which needed to be mapped to all the unit learning outcomes and course learning outcomes. I don't know why at some stage they're taken out. Now, we don't have a web page that says graduate capabilities, but we are all required to cover all these aspects in everything, whatever we teach, mathematics, ancient history, or psychology, or whatever. And if you do education research, you also learn about the assessments, how they should be designed, what is important. And we all know students only study what they are assessed on. If you have formative assessments, only the really good students put time aside to do their work, the others don't. And one of these experts in the assessments is Professor Board. And I looked at his 7 propositions for assessments, and he was seeing it that will happen in 2020. And I think it is still relevant. And I think even with underactive AI, the things are relevant and important. So we need to make sure in higher education specifically, but you could do it in the school education too. Students are engaged and we provide feedback, they act on the feedback, and then assessment for learning. And we also design it in a way that whatever they are assessed on, it will be a lifelong skill for the students, and they can use it in the future. Again, employability skills. I don't know how they are embedded in other disciplines so much, because I only attended stats education conferences or maths education conferences. I haven't attended social sciences conferences and so on and so forth. But it's not just in Australia. I know in the European countries, it's really important. Some of these things were already in the curriculum, say for engineering. they always have to have a workplace experience before they graduate. Usually the engineering institutes in the countries require them to have this practical experience, and it is always part of it's always been part of the nursing education or medicine and so on and so forth, and teachers education. But regardless of whatever that you are studying, communication is really, really important. Whether you study statistics, whether you study medicine, you study journalism. I mean, depending on whatever that you study, the level of importance goes up and down, and the types of communication differs. With the statistics, the communication usually happens in the having meetings with the clients and writing reports for the clients and presenting the results. So both verbal and written communication skills, specifically writing for non-experts, become really important. Because of that, working with real clients during the university, which is work integrated learning, is really important. The work integrated learning again became a buzzword not so long ago. Looking back now, it's been 15 years I've been teaching a work integrated learning unit. The first time it was offered is 2011, 14 years. But in my university, that became a requirement for every undergraduate student to do a work integrated learning unit. How we implemented it differed. In our case, I was put in charge of developing this unit with more senior colleagues, and we worked together and we structured it in a way how we work with the clients. Therefore, we put students in the teams and groups of 3, groups of 2, groups of 4, depending on how big the project was. We screened the project, but the projects had no easily seeable solution and no solution at all, because clients came to us, they were short of statisticians, they needed help, and they were happy to invest their time to work with the students, and therefore their problems could have been ill-defined, or it was defined in a way that you cannot take it and solve it. You had to communicate with them, you had to have meetings with them to clarify, and then you had to turn their questions into statistical problem so that you can work with them. That part of it, communicating with the client, having meetings and understanding the data sets, the variables in the data, that was part of the student work. We have stayed back and the students took liberty to organize the meetings and so on and so forth. So they have done all these verbal communications and they've written the reports afterwards. The stories, yes, I agree with you, Mike. Most people understand stories more than the numbers. I totally agree with you. That's why we emphasize more and more. It's not about showing off how much statistics you know, but it's all about how you solve the problem and what does it mean for the client. So when they are writing the reports, we emphasize that they should put the technical details in the appendix for us so that we can assess what they have done. But the communication to client required the storytelling. So the benefits of structuring learning around that project work allowed us, we mimicked how students will be working in the workplace, but we also provided them the support during the project. Although we were not with them during the meetings, in our weekly classes, we had reflection sections, and every group summarized what they've done. Every group was able to identify questions to ask, and other students were able to help them. And this project work helps students to gain an experience as a statistician, so that was also useful for their future job applications. We brought an expert from career office in the university to talk to them about how they should structure their job applications in a STAR framework: situation, task, action, result. And they could use their experience as doing this project in their job applications. So that mimic the workplace reality. The data sets are mess. The clients don't actually know what they want. They only want their data to be analyzed, but they don't have a specific question. So students had to deal with this, and it helped us to not use any exams or anything like that, but instead we analyzed total statistician work through the different stages of their work. So the professional, as if like a PDR, a performance development review, when we did the assessment tasks and things like that. I'm going to say the AI transformation part. Now it is impossible not to use generative AI for doing such things. I do use generative AI when I am creating code, when I'm writing code, specifically the statistical software. The reason I do that, because it saved me so much time. I know what I'm going to ask, and I already written some code. I want to modify it for a new problem. I want to modify it for new data set. So I can take my code, put it in Copilot, ChatGPT, Gemini. These are the three things I've recently used. And then I can just change it very quickly. And if I have an error message coming from that software, the software I'm using is R, it spits out an error message, which is not really English. It's more like gibberish. It used to take me ages to figure out where I made mistake, like half an hour, 1 hour or something like that. Now it takes me no time whatsoever. I put it in Copilot or one of the others, and it just shows me where I made mistake, and it can correct it quickly. So if I'm using it in my work as a statistical consulting researcher, I'd like my students to use it too. That brings some issues though, because they have to acknowledge they used it, and they have to show me how they used it, where they benefited from it, and where it was not beneficial to them. So that is part of the assessment now, not just the code they've written, but how they've done it. That is part of the assessment. It is absolutely true. It's a great tool for experts. It saves me a lot of time, and also it's very dangerous for the people with not enough knowledge in the context that they are asking questions about. This semester, when I was teaching third year and master students, I gave them examples of how generative AI could give you answers. It sounds very convincing, but it's totally not usable at all. Very, very wrong. So if you insist pointing out you made a mistake, it shows you, oh, yes, you're right, I made a mistake, it corrects itself. But if you don't know what you're talking about, if you don't know enough in the area, it is very, very dangerous, because it convinces you whatever it says seems to be real, but it's actually hallucinating. This is the unit I've been teaching last couple of years as the work integrated learning. This is the taken from the unit guide, what we're going to talk about. But I want to show you this. The unit learning outcomes is a summary of what was about the unit. So basically here, what we are doing is we are telling students you are going to analyze and describe the client's problem, because clients say they have a problem, but they don't actually know what the problem is. And then effectively communicate the stages and the results. So that is happening throughout the semester, every week. In our meetings together with the students, and they are meeting with the client, and then they write a project plan at the beginning, and then project report, and also they have reflections around those things as well. And ethics is absolutely important, especially now with the generative AI. The responsible use of generative AI is really, really important. And the last thing is improving ability to work cooperatively as team member. I do ask students at the beginning, week 1, reflections on any group work they might have done until enrolling to unit. Some of them had really bad experiences and they are really worried how they could work with other students for 15 weeks working on a real project. But at the end, I also have their reflections on the group work and things like that. We do support them as well. We ask them weekly, how is everything going? Is there any problems? And sometimes during the semester, they say that student is not pulling their weight. When they are all together, like our member was not able to contribute enough, kind of thing. So we do have a chat with them, but at the end, using the peer assessment, self-assessment, we make sure we can actually adjust the mark if the students did not put enough effort into solving the client's problem. Generative AI cannot be taught as an artificial team member because it's just a tool. It cannot do itself anything unless you ask generative AI something. I was reading a book, I think it's called Faking It AI or something, which tells us that generative AI is not actually intelligent. It cannot be even as intelligent as a cat. It can only use whatever is available in the World Wide Web. It's someone called generative AI is, what is it? Parrot, I think. They can only say whatever they heard, whatever they read. So it cannot be a team member. It's just like a calculator or it's just like a computer. So that's about, it's just a tool. It's not a member for sure. If I want to graphically show you, that's what we do with the workflow. So the workflow goes from the data collection, usually collected by the client sometimes. When it's collected, then the students need to understand how it was collected. If it wasn't collected, then the students might design a tool to collect the data. Data analysis is just a minuscule part of it. But when students come to this unit, they think everything is about data analysis and nothing more. But it's not. Data analysis is only 1/5 of what they are doing. Everything else is related to professional practice, insights into analysis. So what does that mean? Are there any other alternatives that they could use, and how they could communicate it to the technical expert, how they could communicate it to their client who might or might not know statistics. What is the impact of their finding? Were they able to answer the client's problem? One of the things, if you've ever studied statistics, you might have heard about type 1, type 2 errors, which is when the hypothesis is true, you reject it, or when the hypothesis is not true, but you fail to reject it. That these are the type 1, type 2 errors. But I talk about type 3 errors, which was a paper published in 1950s talks about it. It means answering the wrong question correctly. So the students would like to answer a question looking at the data. They think what the question is, but it's not actually the client's question. So I emphasize almost every week, did your client agree that that was the question they want the answer? Sometimes it's not possible to answer the client question with the given data, so that students suggest then, would it be possible we work with this data, but we can only answer this question because your data is only able to provide answer for that question. If the client agrees, they go ahead and answer that question. If the client does not agree, then the students write another report to say, if you want to answer the question that you have, how you should collect data, which variables to include, and then they create simulation examples, how the results could be how the data could be analyzed, how the results could be presented, so on and so forth. So we have a solution for every ill-defined problem coming from the client to mimic the workplace statistician work. So what is really important, even though this is the third year stats unit, we don't teach any statistics. We don't teach any new statistical techniques. All we rely on what students already know, and if they need to learn a new technique because it wasn't in the curriculum or they haven't chosen a certain elective unit, we guide them to learn themselves. So we provide them some resources and we answer their questions, so they are learning together to apply that new statistical technique that they are learning. So lifelong learning is part of this unit as well. Doing this project work allows us to make sure students are activating their social skills, soft skills. Not just we are saying, yes, they will improve their critical thinking skills by doing this unit, but they actually do, because they have to practice it. They have to put it in application. And regarding the communication, you might have noticed or not in the schedule of the unit, we have 1 week we talk about asking questions that you can actually get answers, and we talk about active listening, and I do any hands-on experience with them. I give them one paragraph in totally different topics. Every student has different paragraph. I put them in pairs. One reads, both of them read at the same time. And the idea is they try to understand each other and they try to understand what they read. The idea here is you cannot listen and read at the same time. You know, in the lectures, they are having their laptops in front of them. And if they are reading something there, they're not really part of the learning, the engagement. And similarly, if they are meeting with their client, if they are reading something on the screen when the client is talking, it's not actively possible to listen to the client. Okay. So we are trying to bridge the gap between classroom and workplace by making sure we mimic the workplace in the learning and assessments. So this was the assessment plan that we have used. You can just quickly just have a look and notice that reflection, self-reflection is part of it. I'm going to show you maybe I have 3 learning activities. I'm going to go through them quickly because I'm cautious of the time. So I adopted a learning activity from a published paper. It's called How Many Pages? I've started doing it in the classroom before the pandemic. So I have one book and I give that book to the first student with 2 envelopes. Student takes an empty paper, counts how many pages, and I tell them not to talk at all. Do not talk until you write how many pages in the book, and then they pass it. When every student does that, I look at the numbers and then I show them on the board. But this is the couple of years in a row I collected, and then I show them this. So they're all looking at the same book, and they're all third-year university students studying statistics, and the number of pages cannot be agreed. You can see the variability. Variability is one of the key things in statistics. If you don't understand variability, you don't understand anything. So that's what I was trying to emphasize there. Then we discuss what happened. Why couldn't you count how many pages this book has? You're the third-year statistics student, third-year university student. You will be in the workplace very soon. If you can't count how many pages the book has, how can you do your job? We discuss what happened. They are easily identify that I didn't tell them which pages to count. Like, is the index pages included? Should they count the references? Should they consider the cover and the back page? And so on and so forth. Then I emphasize it depends which pages to count. If you are the student and this was given to you as a textbook, you don't care about the index pages, you don't care about the references, all you care about the content pages. But if you are the publisher, you do care about all the pages because you want to know how much paper, how much ink is required to publish this book. So we talk about it's not just the word pages is important, but also in what context we are asking the question, understanding the context of the problem. Here in the blue one, you are seeing when we were under lockdown in 2022, I just changed this. I couldn't give them the physical book. Then I gave them a PDF. I mean, you think PDF should be easier to count, but the variability still was there. And again, because of the same reason, they didn't know which pages to count. Then I give them the second learning activity. I define. Here, there is a text. You can read it, but it doesn't matter. So there is a text about farming and whatever. It's totally irrelevant to statistics. So I tell them, okay, now I'm defining the variable. I want you to count all the letter F's, capital or small letter. Do you know what F look like? They all say, yes, they know what F look like. And I tell them, I give you 2 minutes. You cannot use highlighter. You cannot use any pens. You're just going to use your eyes. Read through that and tell me how many F's in this text. And they do count it. Now, we overcome the difficulty of not knowing what to count because I told them what to count. They know the F. Even if I give it to year 1 student at 6-year-old, they should be able to count it. But what happens? So these are, over the years, the counts of, oh, sorry, not this one. Okay, I forgot this graph, but the graph is very similar. So what happens is that there is still variability. So they can't count the F properly. When I talk to them, why not? The reason for that, I didn't give them tools to assist them. I told them they cannot use any pens or pencils. And then I put them under time pressure. I said 2 minutes and no more than that. So even if we define the variables really nicely, if you don't have enough resources and time, you can't do it. ChatGPT couldn't count the number of R's in strawberry. Okay, that's an interesting one. And I told you about communicating the findings clearly and understandably, so everyone understands the same thing. I've been marking student assessment, student work for ages, and the reason I included this because I'm also reviewing papers, and I see this word. It's not just some; it could be many, it could be most, things like that. They're called visual words, I think. When you use these words, it's not really clear what you mean. In the face-to-face classes, I ask students to close their eyes and I ask them to put their hand up when I give them the number range to what do they think about sum. Between 0 and 10, if they thought it was between 0 and 10, they put their hands up. And later on, when we were using it in 2020 on the lockdown and afterwards, I used the Google form. So they had this question and they just ticked it, and quickly we could see in the class what people understand from sum. The reason for that, when they write some of the I don't know, some of the sales increased or something like that, or sometimes, what does that really mean? People understand different things from some most, and so on and so forth. So I want them to quantify what do they mean by some, so that whatever they mean is understood by the readers as well. Did this really happen? Yes, they have to contextualize as well. So did this really happen? It did happen. You can see the most frequent pull type. These are coming from the student reports, and they put 18 cases, 29.5%. In the past, they would have not put that one in. They would have just put the most frequent pull type. And then reasonably high. What does that mean? What is reasonably high? So I wanted them to quantify, and they did. When I see this, most of the respondents, and what does that mean? I mean, because I know I was an elected Senate member, and we've been told majority passed it. Majority, what is that majority? 51% is majority. Yes, okay, kind of thing. I mean, it's quantifying it is really, really important. This problem is more like putting what you know into your daily life. Can I just quickly ask you to put the answer for this question into chat? You can put A or B. Linda is a 31-year-old, single, outspoken, and very bright. She majored in psychology as a student. She was deeply concerned with issues of discrimination and social justice, and also participated in anti-nuclear demonstrations. Which of the two alternatives is more probable? Linda is a bank teller. Linda is a bank teller and is active in a feminist movement. Two more people to put the answer in, please, A or B. Okay, okay. You're as good as or better than my students, believe me. I have used this one. I know. I have used this one even in a stats education conference dinner talk, and the colleagues who chose the second option, sometimes it happens. As soon as you say, think about the Venn diagrams. Linda is a bank teller. Linda is a bank teller and active in feminist movement. What do you think now? They say, oh, no. Yeah, I know. So the students made similar mistakes. And then I'm telling them, when you see a real life problem, you know these things. If I ask you, is A, B, groups of A's, groups of B's, or a probability problem, you would know the answer. But when you think about the day-to-day conversations, you put your knowledge in this is the university work. It's not part of my life. So I try to emphasize to them, whatever you learn, try to practice it in your daily life so that it makes sense and it helps you to make evidence-based decisions. The reflections on learning activities, I said I asked them towards the end of the session. I'm going to stop in a minute. They were skeptic about learning communication skills, and they were also skeptic about being alone with the clients. But at the end of the semester, they said they really benefited from it, and it was really good. And they learned the numbers has a meaning. They knew that, but they never experienced it. And the use of generative AI for the project work is useful because it helps them to efficiently use their time, specifically for mundane tasks. If they could do the mundane things using generative AI, they could move on much faster. One of the deficiencies is in the project where you have to do the coding, and every group does different coding because their problems are different, their solutions are different. So therefore, it's really, really important, and they efficiently use their time and they use the tools available to them. Oh, these are some of the projects they worked on. You might ask what happens to workload of the conveners. I've also done research in the academic workload implications of work integrated learning. Per student assessment is high. But marking such assessments is really fun. You're not looking at expected answers or anything like that. You are reading a real project and real solution. And because you have mentored the students throughout the semester, you almost know what you're going to get. But the one important thing is we limit the project to 12 pages, because when we didn't, and we limit the font size and the margins as if like a conference paper or a journal article, because if we didn't, they use small font, they use no margins, and so on and so forth. So they try to squeeze in as much as possible. But saying less is more important than saying more and not making sense. No, I didn't use for marking, and I don't know whether I would trust marking. It could be used. I have seen a presentation for text analysis to get the teams and things like that for a marking rubric from real assessments. But I am hesitant to use it for specifically for the project work, because I am not sure it will do the right thing, at least at this stage. So the pedagogical implications of this is that students are scared, but they can survive in the real world. I'm going to stop here, and slides will be on the website, I believe. And if you have any questions, please do ask. I am not familiar with this system. I'm not sure, Matthew, whether they could speak or they just need to type the questions.
Yeah, hello folks. If you would like to make comments or questions via the text chat, you can do that. Or if you want to use your microphone, there's a raising hand, like a little icon with a hand up symbol down the bottom in the center of the screen. You can use that if you'd like to request to speak on your microphone. And yes, the slides will be on the Transforming Assessment website probably by tomorrow. I will stick the recording. There'll be a video recording linked from the Transforming Assessment website, and a copy will be on YouTube as well, depending on how you want to consume it. Oh, you have been busy. Lots of publications, good stuff.
They're all in the same area.
Yeah.
I mean, recently, I should also share with you, I've been into audiobooks. I've been listening to a book called AI Valley, and it talks about the generative AI and things like that. And today, first time, I met with Pi. I don't know whether you know Pi. Pi apparently another generative AI. So it's really interesting.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just stepping through the rest of the slides.
Thank you, Mark.
Still got 10 minutes to go. If people would like, Mike, would you like to speak? Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks a lot for that. I'd like to go back to this question of regarding it just as a tool. I mean, it's generating. I mean, there's a copyright issue going on now, and in the courts they're saying, okay, well, it's not copying. It's like everybody else, it's learning. I think there's an interesting question I'd like to ask you. A lot of people are using in a collaborative way. You were, in a lot of your work with programming. A tool normally is under total control of the person using it. Whereas more and more people are using this as a collaboration. You can ask it for explanations, you can have a discussion. Now, clearly, as an expert, it can help you more than as a novice. But at what stage do you think you personally would start regarding it as an artificial team member rather than just a tool? What would it have to be able to do before you did that? Because in industry, people are getting replaced, coders are getting replaced. So team members are being replaced by artificial team members. So I'd just be interested, what else would it need to do before you started regarding it as more than just a tool?
I see it as a tool because I have used it as a tool. I mean, I've used it when I was coding. Yes, I did use it just to understand what literature is out there for a specific topic, which I knew there should be nothing out there. I've used only Copilot and Gemini for this. I've done it a year or so ago. I searched for generative AI in statistics education. At that time, I knew there was no publications. ChatGPT produced really nice abstract for me or summary of what is out there, and then gave me 5 references, and they were all in the journals that I read, or I review papers. I knew the journals, but I didn't know any of the authors. When I looked to the journals, they didn't exist. They were just made up. And then I asked the same question to Copilot. Copilot wrote me 250 words or so, really nicely written, gave me like 30 references. They were all on the edges of what I asked. None of them were relevant to what I asked, really, but they were all real. Maybe I was using free version of ChatGPT, but Copilot was the paid version by the university. That could be because of that. I am not sure. So I guess if I take what it says as is, then I could consider it as a team member, but I never see it as a team member because I don't take what it gives me. I question it, and then I implement it or embed it in what I am doing. I'm embedding it specifically when I'm doing the coding. I really like when I'm doing the coding because it saves me a lot of time. But I don't do it for any other reason. Okay, I used it for writing politically correct emails. You know, sometimes you get angry, you want to write an email, you just write the facts, and that might be hurting for other people without you understanding it. I've been told I'm very direct, so I just wrote my email, put it in ChatGPT or Copilot to say, I want to say these things nicely. Can you help me there? So it just turned my words into a nice way of saying it. So again, to me as a tool, I don't think it's a member. Why would you think it was it's a member? How could it be a member?
Because in industry, for example, I mean, lawyers, for example, a lot of there's a difference between a team of equals, and quite often you have somebody head of the team who gives their minions little jobs to do, and you without AI, you could have asked somebody who's good at writing more politely than you, could you just take my email, please, and write it in a more polite way? And that would have been a human. So it's moving more and more into tasks. I mean, the agents thing, people are saying, go away and do this. So I'd just be interested, because a lot of people are regarding it as an artificial team member. So it's interesting where it's going.
It's absolutely interesting where it's going. I was recently reading about historical fiction novels in the Industrial Revolution time in England, how the ladies who used to work in the jam factories or pickle factories and things like that, they lost their job because they were replaced with machines. You know how devastating it was for them to lose their job. But now looking back and looking forward, looking at now, if they are educated in another area and they could find jobs in another area, it will be improvement for their lives as well, because what they've done wasn't easy. But when we lose our job, we think there's something wrong with it. But the jobs are coming up in some other places. Yes, one generation will be really badly impacted, specifically now the computer scientists, I think.
Okay, any more questions or comments? I think we could probably go down the generative AI rabbit hole quite a lot. But yeah, I did want to comment on.
Can I just ask one more quickly? Some
Yep.
years ago, I came across computer resampling as an alternative to trying to understand all the different rules about the data variability and kurtosis and skewness and everything. And it seemed to revolutionize statistics. Has it revolutionized statistics, the idea that you can do computer resampling of small data sets?
The debate continues on that. You're talking about bootstrapping and using small samples to create new samples from the make it bigger kind of thing. I think that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, you
in
can
some
just,
areas.
yeah.
Yeah, in some areas it works, but there are also critics of it. If you create more samples from existing samples, you increase the bias. Some people say that if the sample is really representative, we should be able to analyze it as is. But others argue that the bigger sample is better. I mean, the biggest discussion recently is not necessarily bootstrap sampling, but it's more big data or small data. I mean, when we say small, it's not small anymore, but the big data is trillions, trillions, trillions. Do we really need to analyze all these trillions when we're doing statistics? Computer scientists, which are doing machine learning and things like that, argue that we need to use everything. Statisticians argue that no, we don't need everything. If you have a big stack of hay, you only need a bucket of it to know whether it's dry or whether it's good quality or whatever. So we need a sample. We don't need big data. It's small is sufficient kind of thing. So the argument moved from bootstrapping, which is still used in the medical research, and used by the experts. So it's really, really important to just leave it there. But the argument now is big data or sampling from the big data. Yeah, I don't know. We sometimes we don't agree on things, but that's not a bad thing. We could discuss different angles of things. And if we are using one way of looking at things, we have to emphasize why we've done it that way. And regarding Galin Kedrova's comment on know-it-all person, I think we can't say know-it-all person. Yes, sometimes students think that, but it's not true. Absolutely not know-it-all person. Thank you for all coming, and thank you for lovely questions. And if you do use Gen AI in your learning and teaching and assessment, please do let Matthew know, and we can hear from you maybe in a future session.
Okay, folks, thank you. We are at time, so we'll bring the session to a close. Thank you, Ayse. That was a great session. I particularly liked actually the aspect around the industry immersion projects that you have students doing. Really good stuff. Next session coming up will be on the 6th of August. We'll be looking at a topic called Choose Your Own Assessment Adventure, Promoting Student Agency and Career Readiness. So hopefully you'll be able to join us for that one as well. But once again, thank you, Ayse. Wonderful session. And I shall stop the recording.